The stock market may sound like a noisy, overwhelming place, filled with flashing screens, fast decisions, and endless numbers. But at its heart, it is a very human story, built slowly over centuries out of trust, imagination, and the simple desire to share in each other's journeys. Tonight, we'll take a quiet walk through that story, tracing how markets began, why they exist, and how they shape the world around us. As you listen, let this story unfold gently, like the turning of a page or the rippling of water. By the end, the stock market will no longer feel like a storm of noise, but like a calm river, one you can understand, one that flows with the hopes and dreams of millions. Stay with us for the journey ahead, and if you enjoy this gentle exploration, be sure to like this video, subscribe for more soothing stories, and share your thoughts in the comments. The stock market is often imagined as a place of noise, screens glowing with numbers, voices shouting in urgency, trades flying back and forth in a storm of activity. But its story begins far from this picture. To truly understand the market, we must step back, quiet our minds, and drift into a slower rhythm. Imagine the world long ago, before skyscrapers and ticker tapes, when trade was measured not in flashing lights, but in footsteps across dusty roads, in the rustle of sacks of grain, in the clinking of clay pots passed from hand to hand. The stock market, though grand and complicated today, is the natural outgrowth of something very simple: the human desire to share, to take risks together, and to imagine a future that could be built through trust. In the earliest days of human society, there was only barter. A shepherd with sheep might trade wool for a farmer's grain. A potter might offer clay jars in exchange for dried fish. These exchanges, as humble as they were, carried within them the seeds of a vast financial world yet to come. But barter was imperfect, bound by limitations. If the shepherd wanted sandals, but the sandal maker had no need for wool, the trade collapsed before it could begin. This double coincidence of wants, as it would later be called, was a stumbling block. The solution was to create something everyone could agree upon, something that could act as a universal stand-in for value. Thus, money, in its earliest forms, was born. Cowrie shells, beads, polished stones. Each culture chose something different, but the purpose was the same: to give value a shape, a body that could be carried in a pocket or strung around the neck. In time, societies discovered metals: copper, silver, gold. These were durable, beautiful, and scarce enough to inspire trust. A coin could be carried across deserts, up mountains, over seas, and still hold its meaning. With money came the first glimmers of markets that felt familiar, places where strangers could gather, display their goods, and trade with confidence. Picture a bustling marketplace along the banks of the Nile or the Tigris. The air is warm, filled with the scent of spices, roasted bread, and oil. Merchants call out to passing crowds, offering dates, fabrics, jars of honey. Every exchange is small, but together they form a living rhythm, a heartbeat of trade. Money flows like water between hands, quick and fluid. It is in these places, beneath open skies, that the first invisible threads of what would one day become the stock market began to weave themselves. For trade is not just about survival. It is about possibility. It is about dreaming beyond the horizon, about sending goods farther than you yourself could go, and trusting others to carry your hopes for you. As trade routes expanded, so too did ambition. Ships sailed from Mediterranean harbors to the far reaches of Asia, bringing back silks, spices, gems, and ideas. But such journeys were perilous. Storms could sink a ship, pirates could seize its cargo, and distant markets could collapse before goods were sold. For one merchant to bear this risk alone was often unbearable. And so a new practice emerged. Merchants began pooling their resources, sharing the risks of a voyage. If the ship returned safely, the profit would be divided. If it sank beneath the waves, the loss would be spread among all. It was here, in these quiet agreements made in taverns and counting houses, that the essence of the stock market, shared risk and shared reward, took its first clear form. Imagine sitting at a wooden table in Amsterdam in the early 1600s. Candles flicker against parchment as merchants sign their names to an agreement. Outside, the harbor creaks with ships, their sails furled, their decks loaded with barrels and crates. Each man around the table has given coin to fund the voyage. Each now holds not a barrel of spices or a chest of silk, but a promise, a small claim on a larger adventure. They cannot see the storms that lie ahead or the profits that may be waiting, but they have taken the risk together. This was the spirit of the Dutch East India Company, one of the first true joint stock companies, and with its founding in 1602 came something new in the world, the first official stock exchange. The Amsterdam Stock Exchange was unlike anything seen before. For the first time, shares of a company could be bought and sold in an open, organized place. The market was not a hidden circle of merchants whispering in taverns, but a public arena where ownership itself could change hands. A man could sell his stake in a voyage to another, passing along both the risks and rewards. Wealth became more liquid, more alive, flowing between people not as coins in a purse, but as pieces of paper representing trust and expectation. This was the moment when the stock market truly began, when ownership became something that could be divided, shared, and traded. It was revolutionary not because it created wealth from nothing, but because it gave ordinary people, artisans, shopkeepers, even laborers with a few coins saved, a chance to participate in ventures once reserved for kings and nobles. For the first time, wealth could grow not only through labor, but through investment, through placing a small piece of one's hope in the hands of a larger enterprise. The garden of the market, once planted, began to spread. From Amsterdam, the idea leapt to London, Paris, and beyond. The Royal Exchange in London became a hive of activity, filled with chatter and clinking coin. Here, men in powdered wigs and long coats gathered not just to trade goods, but to speculate on the future of companies, colonies, and empires. Shares passed between hands like cards in a game, their value rising and falling with news of distant lands. A rumor of gold discovered in the Americas could send prices soaring. Word of a ship lost to storms could sink them. The market had become not only a place of trade, but a mirror of human emotion, hope, fear, ambition, and greed. And yet, beneath the chaos, there was something steady and quiet, the principle of trust. Every share bought was a seed planted in belief. Belief that the company would prosper, belief that ships would return safely, belief that tomorrow could be brighter than today. Not all seeds grow. Some withered in droughts of mismanagement or storms of war. Others grew beyond imagination, bearing fruit for generations. But whether they flourished or failed, they carried within them the essence of the market. Risk shared, reward shared, and a future imagined together. To explain the stock market is not to recite formulas or charts. It is to tell a story of how humans learn to weave their fates together. Consider a farmer planting a field. Alone, his harvest feeds only his family. But if he joins with others, pooling resources, they can plant an orchard. One man may plant the trees, another may water them, a third may protect them from pests. In time, the orchard grows larger than any one man could have managed alone, and the fruit feeds many. The stock market is an orchard of this kind, a place where individuals place their seeds of wealth and trust into a shared soil, hoping to reap together what they could not grow apart. The early markets were not always wise, nor always fair. For as long as there were shares to buy, there were also bubbles, times when hope grew too quickly, swelling beyond reason. One of the earliest was the Dutch tulip mania of the 1630s, when rare tulip bulbs became objects of feverish speculation. Prices rose to absurd heights as people bought not for the flower itself, but for the promise of selling at a higher price. And when the bubble burst, fortunes vanished like morning mist. Yet even in failure, the lesson of trust endured. The market was not only a place of wealth, but of stories, some of triumph, some of loss, all woven into the fabric of human ambition. Step by step, century by century, the stock market grew more complex. New exchanges opened, new companies sought investors, and new ideas shaped the flow of wealth. But the essence remained unchanged. Beneath every share, every trade, every tick of the market's pulse lay a quiet agreement that people, by trusting each other, could build something greater than themselves. Tonight, as we trace these beginnings, imagine the stock market not as a storm of numbers, but as a river. It begins as a trickle in the mountains, a few merchants pooling coins for a single voyage. It grows into a stream, flowing through towns and villages as exchanges open their doors. And eventually, it becomes a mighty river, carrying ships, dreams, and fortunes upon its waters. The river is never still. It ebbs and flows, swells and recedes. Yet always it carries with it the reflections of those who trust in its current. The stock market in its infancy was fragile. Wars, plagues, and political upheavals often threatened its survival. Yet it endured because it was more than a structure of wood and stone. It was an idea, and ideas are hard to destroy. As long as people wished to build together, as long as they dreamed of reaching beyond their own means, the market found a way to flow forward. And so it has, carrying us from riverside markets to candlelit exchanges, from parchment contracts to glowing digital screens. Its story is our story, of risk and reward, of hope and caution, of seeds planted in trust and orchards grown in time. The story of the stock market, once rooted in harbors and candlelit rooms, began to stretch outward, growing with each new century, like a tree sending branches toward distant skies. In the 17th and 18th centuries, it was no longer just merchants and sea captains gathering to share risks. The stock market had become something bigger, something that touched farmers, artisans, and even those who never set foot in a trading hall. Its influence rippled outward, carried by newspapers, by gossip, by the rise and fall of fortunes that became tales told in markets and taverns. To live in a city like Amsterdam or London was to feel the pulse of this new invention, sometimes steady and hopeful, sometimes feverish and frightening. Take London, for example, a city of smoke and noise, where horse-drawn carriages rattled over cobblestones and the air smelled of coal and rain. At the heart of the city stood coffee houses, buzzing with conversation. These were not simply places for a cup of coffee, but informal exchanges, where news arrived by ship and was whispered across tables. In one corner, a sailor told of a fleet delayed by storms. In another, a merchant unrolled papers listing prices for sugar, tobacco, and cotton. Shares were bought and sold here, sometimes scribbled hastily on scraps of parchment, sometimes sealed with firm handshakes. Out of these humble beginnings rose what would become the London Stock Exchange, one of the most influential financial centers in the world. The energy of the market was magnetic. People from all walks of life were drawn to it, some cautious, others daring. For some, it was a way to secure a future, to provide for children, or expand a business. For others, it was a gamble, a chance to win quickly, to rise from nothing to wealth with the purchase of a single share. And with every new participant, the market grew more alive, more entwined with human desire and imagination. But desire has a way of running faster than reason, and the stock market, still young and untested, often became a stage for dreams too grand to hold. One of the most famous episodes of this kind came in the early 18th century with the South Sea Company. Promising riches from trade in South America, it inspired a frenzy of speculation in Britain. Shares soared as everyone, lords and ladies, servants and shopkeepers, rushed to buy a piece of what seemed like guaranteed fortune. The streets buzzed with excitement, as if wealth itself were falling from the sky. But beneath the glitter, reality was thin. The company's profits could not match the soaring price of its shares. And when truth pierced the illusion, the bubble burst. Fortunes collapsed overnight, and despair swept across the same streets that had once rung with joy. The South Sea bubble, like the tulip mania before it, revealed both the brilliance and the fragility of markets. On the one hand, they gave people the power to dream together, to imagine a future greater than their present. On the other, they could amplify human weakness, greed, fear, the lure of quick riches. The stock market was becoming a mirror, reflecting not only the economies of nations, but the inner workings of human nature itself. And yet, despite crashes and collapses, the market never vanished. Each time it adapted, rebuilt, and continued, as though it carried within it the resilience of the very people who shaped it. Laws were written, rules established, new systems put in place to bring order to chaos. Out of mistakes grew lessons, and out of lessons, stability. By the time the 18th century gave way to the 19th, stock exchanges had become fixtures in cities around the world, as essential to trade as harbors or roads. Imagine Paris in the 19th century, its grand boulevards filled with carriages, its cafes alive with conversation. The Paris Bourse, housed in a stately building with tall columns, was more than just a financial center. It was a symbol of the city's ambition and its place in the global economy. Here, investors debated not only the fortunes of companies, but the fate of nations. The Industrial Revolution was stirring. Machines were transforming factories. Railways were weaving continents together. And the stock market stood at the crossroads of it all. Every new invention, the steam engine, the telegraph, the spinning jenny, was not just a marvel of engineering, but an opportunity for investment. Shares in railway companies, in coal mines, in steelworks became the lifeblood of industrial growth. The stock market was no longer about voyages across oceans, but about reshaping the very fabric of daily life. When railways were built, towns that had once been isolated were suddenly connected. Goods moved faster, people traveled farther, and economies thrived. But none of this was possible without the flows of capital that markets provided. Investors who had never lifted a hammer or driven a locomotive still played a role in laying tracks and fueling engines simply by buying shares and believing in the possibility of progress. Of course, progress was never smooth. Just as the market rose with each wave of invention, it also fell in times of uncertainty. Wars disrupted trade, revolutions unsettled nations, and financial panics rippled across borders. One such panic struck in 1873, when speculation in railways and heavy industry in Europe and the United States spiraled out of control. Banks failed, stock prices collapsed, and economies entered a long depression. Once again, dreams were dashed, but once again, the market endured, reshaping itself for the future. By the dawn of the 20th century, the stock market had become inseparable from modern life. In cities like New York, towering skyscrapers housed not only offices and banks, but the beating heart of finance itself, the New York Stock Exchange. Here on Wall Street, traders crowded the floor, their voices rising and falling like waves. The tick of telegraphs carried prices across the nation, and ordinary citizens followed the market in newspapers, watching as numbers told stories of fortunes made and lost. The rise of Wall Street was more than just the rise of a marketplace. It symbolized the growing power of investment in shaping the destiny of nations. When industries sought to expand, they turned to the market for capital. When governments faced war or reconstruction, they too relied on bonds and shares to rally resources. The stock market was no longer a curiosity or a pastime. It had become a cornerstone of the modern world, its movements capable of lifting nations into prosperity or plunging them into crisis. And still, at its core, it remained what it had always been, a place of trust, a place where people dared to dream of the future together. Each certificate of stock was not just a piece of paper, but a story of a factory built, a railway laid, a voyage launched, a city illuminated by electricity for the first time. Investors may not have seen the sparks of wires or the smoke of trains, but they felt them in the rising value of their shares, in the dividends that arrived like ripened fruit from orchards planted years before. As the first half of the 20th century unfolded, the stock market grew ever more influential, but it also carried within it the seeds of great upheaval. The 1920s roared with optimism, a decade of jazz, motion pictures, and dazzling skyscrapers. People invested with feverish enthusiasm, convinced that prosperity could only rise. Shares were bought not only with savings, but with borrowed money, credit fueling dreams larger than reality could sustain. When the crash came in 1929, it was devastating. Prices fell like stones, fortunes evaporated, and despair gripped nations. The Great Depression that followed revealed the immense power of the market, not just to create wealth, but to shake entire societies when trust was broken. And yet, even then, the market survived. Governments introduced new regulations, systems of oversight, and protections for investors. Out of hardship grew resilience, and out of despair, determination. By the mid-20th century, the stock market was once again thriving, carrying with it the lessons of past mistakes and the hopes of new generations. The journey from harbors and coffee houses to Wall Street and skyscrapers was long, filled with triumphs and failures alike. But through it all, the stock market remained a living story, a quiet but powerful tale of how people come together not only to trade goods, but to share in the risks and rewards of building a future. It is, in many ways, a story of humanity itself, flawed, ambitious, fragile, and resilient, always dreaming of what might lie beyond the horizon. The stock market may appear from the outside like a vast and complicated machine, humming with endless gears and wires, but at its heart, it is something much simpler. It is the weaving together of stories. Each share, each trade, each rise and fall of price is a reflection of human belief. To understand how the market truly works, we do not need to plunge into numbers or formulas. We only need to listen closely to its rhythm, to imagine the quiet conversations and the gentle flow of trust that bind it together. Imagine a candlelit room where a group of people sit around a wooden table. In front of them is a parchment with the name of a company written across it. One person says, "I will take a part of this venture." Another nods and replies, "I too will place my coin upon it." What they are doing, in essence, is dividing ownership. The company itself is like a great ship, too large to belong to any one sailor. By breaking it into shares, they allow many to climb aboard, each holding a small piece of the journey. One may hold 10 shares, another 50, another only one, but all are passengers on the same voyage. This, at its most fundamental, is what the stock market is. A place where ownership of companies is divided into pieces, where those pieces can be bought and sold. To hold a share is to hold a slice of a story, not just the profits that might come, but the risks as well. If the company grows, builds new factories, sells more goods, the share grows in value too. If the company falters, stumbles in competition, or fails to adapt, the share may fall. In this way, every share is like a small mirror, reflecting the health and direction of the enterprise it represents. But here is where the market becomes alive. Because shares can be traded, they flow like water between people. A man may buy today and sell tomorrow, passing his claim to another who believes the future is brighter still. Each trade is a small agreement, one person willing to part with ownership, another eager to acquire it. The price at which they meet is not fixed by law or decree, but by the quiet balance of supply and demand. Think of a marketplace filled with fruit sellers. One vendor offers apples at 3 coins apiece. If many buyers crowd around, eager for the apples, he may raise his price to 4 coins, knowing demand is strong. If buyers drift away, uninterested, he may lower it to 2 coins to tempt them back. The stock market works in much the same way. When many wish to buy a company's shares, the price rises. When many wish to sell, the price falls. The price is not carved in stone, but constantly shifting, a dance between hope and hesitation, optimism and caution. It is here that the market reveals its human side. Prices are not only about mathematics or balance sheets, they are about belief. A whisper of good news, a new invention, a successful harvest, a profitable voyage can send prices climbing as people imagine brighter days ahead. A rumor of trouble, a lost ship, a failed product, a political upheaval can send them tumbling. The market is like a great weather vane, sensitive to every breeze of news, turning and swaying with the winds of human feeling. And yet, within this swirling movement, there is order. Imagine a great flock of birds wheeling in the sky. To an observer, the flock seems chaotic, darting left and right, rising and falling. But look closer, and there is a hidden harmony. each bird responding to its neighbors, creating a pattern larger than any single one of them. The stock market is like this flock. Individual trades may seem random, but together they form a vast pattern, a flow that tells the story of companies, industries, and entire nations. Consider too the dividends that some shares provide. A company, after earning profits, may choose to distribute a portion to its shareholders. It is as though the great ship, after returning from a voyage, gives each passenger a small share of the cargo, a barrel of spice, a handful of coins, a reminder that ownership brings not only risk but reward. For some investors, these dividends are the fruit of their patience, a steady return that arrives season after season. For others, the true reward lies in growth, in holding shares that increase in value as the company expands, selling later at a higher price than they paid. And here we find two kinds of participants: those who plant seeds for the long term and those who chase the winds of the present. The long-term investor is like a farmer who plants an orchard, tending it year after year, content to wait for the fruit. The short-term trader is like a fisherman casting a net, hoping for a quick catch, moving swiftly from place to place. Both play roles in the market, and both together keep its waters alive with movement. In the quiet heart of the market lies another truth. It is not only a place of wealth, but a place of stories. When someone buys a share, they are not only purchasing numbers on a screen, they are aligning themselves with a narrative. A woman who buys shares in a railway company in the 19th century is aligning with the story of steam engines and iron tracks uniting towns. A man who buys shares in a technology firm in the 20th century is aligning with the story of circuits and wires transforming communication. Each investor, in their own way, says, "I believe in this story. I wish to be part of it." The stock market is also a bridge between the present and the future. The money raised by selling shares does not vanish into thin air. It fuels the building of factories, the hiring of workers, the research for inventions yet unseen. When you hold a share, you are connected, however faintly, to the labor of engineers, the vision of entrepreneurs, the sweat of workers on assembly lines. You may never step into their factories or see their machines, but part of their world is woven into your own. And yet, the market is not always gentle. Its tides can rise swiftly, lifting fortunes higher than anyone dreamed, only to crash with equal force. To understand this is to accept that risk is the twin of opportunity. Just as a farmer knows that storms may destroy crops, an investor knows that markets may tumble. But both also know that without planting, without risk, there can be no harvest at all. The mechanics of the stock market may be explained in diagrams and numbers, but at its essence it is far simpler. It is about people coming together, agreeing on value, and sharing in the future. Every time a share changes hands, it is a quiet handshake across time and distance, a connection between two strangers who may never meet, but who briefly agree on what something is worth. In this way, the stock market is less a machine and more a conversation, one that has been going on for centuries, whispered through coffee houses, echoed in exchanges, and now flickering silently across glowing screens. The stock market is a living thing, not in the sense of flesh and bone, but in the sense of movement, rhythm, and memory. Each share, each trade, each rise and fall is a beat in a grand, ongoing pulse. To follow the market is to follow centuries of human ambition, desire, and imagination, a quiet symphony of hope and caution, risk and reward. In this half of our story, we explore how speculation, bubbles, and panics became part of the market's character, and how the market's movements mirror the human condition itself. Even in its earliest centuries, the stock market had always contained an element of imagination. Investors did not buy shares solely to gain from immediate profits. They bought into stories. The story might be of a merchant's voyage across storm-tossed seas, of a factory producing goods for a hungry population, or of a railway linking distant towns. Each share was a vessel carrying expectation, and when expectations were strong, prices soared. But human imagination can sometimes grow too wild, and when it does, markets can inflate like balloons, carrying dreams higher than reality can support. The tulip mania of the 1630s in the Netherlands is one of the earliest and most famous examples. Rare tulip bulbs became objects of feverish desire, bought and sold not for their beauty alone, but for the belief that their price would rise ever higher. Ordinary citizens, nobles, and merchants alike were swept into the excitement. Some paid more for a single bulb than a skilled laborer earned in a year. And then, almost imperceptibly, the bubble burst. Prices collapsed. Investors who had believed so fervently suddenly found themselves holding only fragments of what they had imagined. The lesson, though harsh, endured. Markets are fragile when belief outpaces reality. Similarly, the South Sea Bubble in 1720 Britain revealed the double-edged nature of trust and expectation. The South Sea Company promised great wealth from trade in the Americas, and people rushed to invest. As the price of shares climbed higher and higher, more and more people joined, feeding the frenzy. When the company could not deliver the imagined returns, the collapse was swift and painful, leaving devastation in its wake. Yet from such episodes, new structures emerged. Governments learned the importance of regulation. Investors learned to temper enthusiasm with caution, and the market, resilient as ever, recovered and continued its rhythm. Speculation is a quiet companion of every market, sometimes subtle, sometimes overwhelming. It is not inherently bad. Indeed, it fuels movement and innovation. To speculate is to imagine the future and act upon that vision, to take part in shaping it. When done thoughtfully, speculation can guide resources to where they are most needed, allowing new companies to grow and new industries to flourish. When done recklessly, it can create bubbles, collapsing under the weight of collective dreams. Understanding this delicate balance is essential to understanding the stock market itself. It is a mirror not only of economics, but of human psychology. Consider the turn of the 20th century when industrialization reshaped the world. Factories churned endlessly, railways spread across continents, and urban populations swelled. People invested in companies producing steel, oil, and electricity, buying shares not simply as an act of wealth, but as a way to participate in the transformation of society. Prices moved not only with profits, but with imagination. News of a new invention, a successful launch, or the promise of expansion could lift shares as surely as wind lifts a sail. Conversely, rumor or misfortune could depress them. The market was alive, responding to both tangible events and the currents of human belief. The human heart has always been entwined with the market. Greed and fear are as old as trade itself, but so too are hope and patience. Investors learned, often painfully,
that markets are not linear, that fortunes can rise and fall in a heartbeat. The crash of 1929 is perhaps the most famous 20th century example. The roaring optimism of the 1920s, fueled by credit and speculation, created a fevered market. People bought shares not with savings alone, but with borrowed money, convinced that prices could only rise. When reality intruded, the collapse was catastrophic. But even this devastation carried lessons for new systems of oversight, for greater understanding of risk, for the recognition that human emotion is always part of the equation.
Beyond crises, the market also reflects the quiet evolution of society. Consider technological innovation. The telegraph, telephone, radio, television, computers, and the internet each transformed the market in ways both obvious and subtle. Communications sped up, prices adjusted more rapidly, and investors could act with unprecedented immediacy. Global markets became interconnected. What happened in Tokyo could ripple through London and New York within hours. And yet, despite this complexity, the essence of the market remained unchanged. A network of people agreeing on the value of shared enterprise, trading ownership in stories of growth and progress. One of the most remarkable features of the stock market is its capacity to endure. Wars, depressions, political upheavals, none of these destroyed it. Each event challenged the market, forcing adaptation and evolution. Regulations were introduced to protect investors, to ensure transparency, to prevent the worst excesses of speculation. Exchanges modernized, communication improved, and the very definition of a company expanded. But beneath all changes, the market's fundamental principle endured: risk and reward shared among many, bound by trust. Imagine for a moment the modern market, where traders watch screens glowing in soft light, where algorithms calculate thousands of trades in a fraction of a second, and where shares of companies worth billions change hands constantly. Even here, beneath the technology and speed, the market is doing what it has always done. It is matching buyers and sellers, reflecting belief and expectation, and telling stories of enterprise, growth, and human ambition. Each digital trade is a quiet echo of the wooden tables in Amsterdam, of candlelit rooms where merchants first shared risk, of voyages launched with hope and courage. The market also teaches patience. Not every investment bears immediate fruit. Some take years, decades even, to grow. A factory may take time to become profitable. A railway may need years of operation before dividends flow. The stock market is, in this sense, a teacher of long-term thinking. Investors learn to wait, to watch, to understand the rhythm of commerce and human behavior. In the quiet spaces between trades, between crashes and surges, lies a pattern of learning, reflection, and growth. Another essential feature of the stock market is diversity. Not all investments are the same, not all companies alike. Some offer steady growth, like a river flowing predictably toward the sea. Others are volatile, rising and falling like waves in a storm. Some industries, agriculture, energy, transportation, technology, each have their own rhythms, their own vulnerabilities, their own stories. Investors learn to observe, to balance, to consider the interplay of risk and stability. In doing so, they participate in a larger story of human ingenuity and adaptation. The market is also a story of connection.
A person who invests in a company is connected, however distantly, to workers, managers, engineers, and consumers. Money flows from investors to enterprise, from enterprise to salaries, to products, to trade, and back again. It is a cycle of trust and exchange, of shared ambition and collective effort. The stock market is in this sense a reflection of society itself, interdependent, complex, yet bound together by invisible threads of cooperation and expectation. Speculation, bubbles, and panics are the market's natural rhythms. They arise because humans are imaginative and emotional. The challenge and the beauty is to observe them with calm, to understand the forces at play, to recognize that every rise carries the seed of a fall, and every fall the potential for renewal. Investors who learn this rhythm, who respect it without being enslaved by fear or greed, participate not only in markets, but in the quiet, enduring story of human enterprise. As the 20th century progressed, the stock market grew ever more sophisticated. Exchanges became regulated, transparency improved, and technologies allowed for faster and more accurate transactions. Yet, in every moment, the market remained a reflection of human choice and judgment. Algorithms may act swiftly, but behind them lie the values and intentions of the people who create them. The market continues to be, as it always was, a dialogue between individuals and society, between risk and reward, between imagination and reality. Globalization introduced new dimensions. Investors could buy shares in companies halfway around the world. Events in one country could ripple across continents. The market became a map of interconnection, a tapestry woven from the threads of countless human stories. Crises in one place could lead to caution everywhere, while innovations in another inspired hope worldwide. The stock market, in this way, mirrors not only human nature, but the global network of human endeavor itself. Through all its complexity, the stock market remains at its heart a gentle conversation. Each trade is a word, each rise or fall a sentence, each bubble or crash a chapter in a story that stretches centuries. It is a story of dreams, of courage, of patience, of risk shared and reward multiplied.
The stock market is not merely a mechanism for exchanging ownership of companies. At its heart, it is a reflection of human thought, behavior, and emotion. In this half of our story, we begin to explore the human experience of markets, the psychology of investors, the subtle interplay of emotion and reason, and the ways that individual choices shape the flow of wealth across communities and generations. To understand this, we must slow down and imagine the quiet, often unseen forces that drive human decision-making. Picture a small room, softly lit by a single lamp. A person sits at a desk, a notebook open before them. They are considering an investment, perhaps shares in a company producing textiles or a new railway line. They examine the information available, the reports of profits and losses, the whispers of competitors, the direction of the economy. And yet, beyond the numbers, another element comes into play: intuition, experience, hope, and sometimes fear. The decision to buy or sell a share is rarely purely rational. It is a mixture of knowledge and feeling, of calculation and imagination. This is where psychology enters the market. Investors, like all humans, are subject to biases and tendencies. They may overreact to recent news, underestimating long-term patterns. They may follow the crowd, believing that the majority cannot get wrong. Or they may act contrarily, seeking opportunities where others see none. Markets, in turn, reflect these behaviors.
Prices rise not only with profits but with optimism, and fall not only with losses but with panic. The human mind and the market are intertwined in a dance that has existed since the earliest days of shared ownership, when merchants first pooled resources to fund a perilous voyage. Consider the notion of confidence. In a market, confidence is invisible yet potent. If investors believe a company will thrive, they will buy its shares, raising the price and creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. If confidence falters, even in the absence of concrete failure, the price may drop. This delicate balance between trust and skepticism, between courage and caution, is the pulse of the market. It is a quiet rhythm shaped by countless individual decisions, each one a small but meaningful contribution to the larger flow. Investor psychology is also intertwined with patience. Markets do not move in straight lines, they fluctuate, sometimes gently, sometimes violently. Those who succeed over the long term often possess the ability to wait, to observe, and to act with calm rather than reacting impulsively to every rise or fall. They understand that investing is a marathon, not a sprint, and that short-term noise is less important than long-term trends. Like a gardener tending an orchard, they nurture their investments, allowing time and diligence to yield rewards. Yet even with patience and careful thought, uncertainty remains. The world is ever-changing. Technology evolves, politics shift, natural events intervene, and unforeseen circumstances appear. Investors must navigate these currents, making decisions based on imperfect information. The market, therefore, is not only a reflection of the companies within it, but of the broader tapestry of human life, with all its unpredictability, creativity, and resilience. We can also observe patterns that repeat across time. From the tulip mania to the South Sea bubble, from the industrial expansions of the 19th century to the dot-com surge at the turn of the millennium, markets have consistently shown cycles of optimism and caution. Human nature, it seems, does not change as quickly as technology or economy. Greed, fear, hope, and imagination continue to guide decisions just as they did centuries ago. Recognizing these patterns is not to predict the future with certainty, but to understand the rhythm and tendencies that shape market behavior. Beyond psychology, the stock market is a story of networks. No investor acts in isolation. Decisions are influenced by family, friends, mentors, and colleagues. News travels through newspapers, conversations, radio broadcasts, and now digital media. One investor's belief can inspire another, creating waves of action that move prices and shape trends. The market is therefore a reflection of social dynamics, a web of human connection expressed in the language of value. Technology has added layers of complexity and opportunity. Telecommunication, computers, and algorithms now amplify human behavior. Trades that once took hours or days can occur in milliseconds. Information is transmitted globally, and prices adjust in real time. Yet even with these innovations, the fundamental drivers remain human: belief, expectation, patience, and courage. The tools may change, but the human story beneath them remains constant. Let us imagine a young investor in the mid-20th century, perhaps in New York, watching the ticker tape scroll across the machine. Each letter, each number, is a fragment of countless stories. Factories producing goods, companies innovating, workers building, managers directing, consumers buying. The investor must decide to act, to buy or sell, to place a portion of their hope and resources into this unfolding narrative. Every choice is a ripple, extending beyond themselves to the world, affecting others in ways they may never fully see.
Human behavior in markets can be subtle, sometimes almost imperceptible. Consider trends such as herd mentality, where investors follow the majority, believing that the collective wisdom of many is more reliable than individual judgment. Or contrarian faking, where some seek opportunity where others see risk, buying when others sell and selling when others buy. Both approaches and countless variations contribute to the continuous flow of the market, a living conversation between many voices across time and space. The human experience also includes the emotional highs and lows of investing. Success can bring joy, relief, or confidence. Loss can bring disappointment, fear, or reflection. The market magnifies emotion because it is a shared experience, a mirror reflecting not just the state of companies, but the state of minds, hearts, and communities. To participate in it is to acknowledge the duality of hope and risk and to move forward with awareness, courage, and patience. Education and knowledge shape the journey of investors. Understanding financial statements, market trends, and economic principles allows participants to make informed decisions. But wisdom comes not only from books and numbers, but also from experience, from observing patterns over time, from understanding human behavior, and from listening to the subtle cues of the market. Investors learn gradually, often through trial and error and through stories passed down by those who came before. One of the most profound lessons of the stock market is interconnectedness. An investor's decision is influenced by countless factors beyond immediate control. Global events, political shifts, technological innovations, natural occurrences. Each investment is a thread in a vast tapestry, connecting the individual to a network far larger than themselves. Recognizing this can bring humility, perspective, and a sense of shared responsibility. Markets also evolve. New instruments such as bonds, options, and derivatives provide additional avenues for participation, risk management, and strategy. Each innovation adds depth and complexity, but the underlying principles remain unchanged. People agreeing on value, sharing risk, and shaping the future collectively. It is the human story, expressed in ever-changing forms, that gives the market its enduring significance. Let us consider again the quiet rhythm of long-term investing. An investor who holds shares over decades participates in a story that spans generations. They witness technological revolutions, social change, economic cycles, and global developments. The value of their shares reflects not only company performance, but the unfolding of history itself. In this sense, investing is a deeply temporal activity, connecting the present to both past and future, grounding hope in careful observation and sustained commitment. The market is also a mirror of ethics and governance. Companies are not islands unto themselves. Their success depends on leadership, accountability, and adherence to laws and social expectations. Investors reward transparency, fairness, and sustainable practice, while punishing negligence, fraud, or mismanagement. Through this feedback loop, the stock market participates in shaping the standards and behaviors of the societies in which it operates. Even as markets have grown more global, the basic human dynamics endure. Whether in the coffee houses of Amsterdam, the trading halls of London, or the digital platforms of today, markets are animated by trust, expectation, and imagination. Each participant, consciously or unconsciously, contributes to the rhythm of exchange, to the rise and fall of value, to the stories that continue to unfold across decades and continents. The stock market also teaches lessons about resilience. Companies falter, industries shift, economies contract, yet the market persists. Investors adapt, learn, and try again. Through cycles of boom and bust, the market demonstrates that setbacks are not the end, but part of a continuing journey.
Success is neither guaranteed nor permanent, but the opportunity for growth and renewal is ever present for those who observe, understand, and participate thoughtfully. Beyond practical lessons, there is a poetic quality to markets. They are stories in motion, narratives that span time and space, shaped by countless human choices. Each share is a sentence, each trade a paragraph, and each market cycle a chapter. By observing these stories, we gain insight not only into economics, but into the essence of human behavior, our hopes, fears, creativity, and persistence. Markets also reflect diversity in people, industries, and strategies. Investors bring different experiences, knowledge, and goals. Companies operate in countless sectors, each with unique rhythms. Markets accommodate a multitude of perspectives, and it is through this diversity that resilience and innovation emerge. The quiet power of collective action, informed by individual insight, is what allows the market to grow and endure. Patience, observation, and reflection are essential qualities for anyone participating in the stock market. Quick decisions driven by emotion may yield immediate results, but often at the cost of long-term understanding. Those who succeed over time cultivate calm, discipline, and an appreciation for the subtle patterns that emerge only through sustained engagement. In this way, investing becomes a practice of mindfulness, awareness, and intentionality, connecting the individual to the broader flow of human endeavor. Finally, the stock market is a reminder that wealth is more than numbers. It is a manifestation of human effort, creativity, and collaboration. Each share represents not just a fraction of a company, but a story of people working together, of resources pooled, of risks shared. By participating in the market, investors become part of these ongoing narratives, contributing to the shaping of societies, economies, and the possibilities of the future. The human dimension of the stock market, its psychology, social dynamics, patience, and resilience, is what gives it depth and meaning. Beneath the charts, screens, and trades lies a rich, enduring story of collective aspiration. In understanding the market, we come to understand not only finance, but the quiet, persistent, and imaginative spirit of humanity itself.
The story of the stock market is not complete without exploring the interplay of human emotion, global events, and technological change that shapes every decision, every trade, and every market movement. While Part 3, Half 1 introduced us to the psychology of investors, in this section we dive deeper into how these human factors combine with the structure of markets to create patterns of opportunity, risk, and innovation. It is here that the quiet, story-like rhythm of the market meets the complexity of reality, forming a rich tapestry that has been evolving for centuries. One of the most fascinating aspects of markets is their sensitivity to collective sentiment. Investors rarely act in isolation. Their decisions are influenced by the thoughts, actions, and expectations of others. A single announcement, a company reporting stronger than expected profits, a government signaling policy changes, or even a rumor spreading through social circles can ripple through the market, moving prices and influencing behavior. These movements are not random. They are reflections of belief, confidence, and fear, magnified by the interconnectedness of participants across towns, cities, and continents. Take, for example, the famous crash of 1987, often referred to as Black Monday. Markets around the world plunged dramatically within hours, wiping out billions of dollars in value. To the casual observer, the event may seem sudden and inexplicable, but to those who study market dynamics, it was the convergence of human behavior, automated trading systems, and global connectivity. Fear, magnified by uncertainty, prompted a wave of selling, which triggered automated programs to sell further, creating a feedback loop. It was a stark illustration of how emotion, technology, and structure intersect in modern markets. Markets, in essence, are mirrors of society. They reflect not only the financial health of companies, but also the cultural, political, and social conditions in which they operate. When investors anticipate economic growth, confidence rises and the market climbs. When political instability threatens, caution spreads and prices fall. This responsiveness is part of the market's enduring power. It is not merely a ledger of numbers, but a living record of human aspiration, judgment, and collective imagination. Another layer of complexity emerges when we consider technological innovation and its impact on trading. From the first ticker tapes to the electronic exchanges of today, each advancement has accelerated the pace at which information travels and trades occur. Investors now make decisions in milliseconds, aided by sophisticated algorithms and vast data streams. Yet, despite this technological sophistication, the market remains fundamentally human. Behind every algorithm are people making choices about how it should behave. Behind every trade is a person deciding whether to buy, sell, or hold. The technology may amplify speed and volume, but it does not replace the human story that drives the market. The stock market also serves as a bridge between generations. Long-term investors, whether individuals or institutions, carry lessons learned from past booms and busts. They remember the crashes that erased wealth, the bubbles that inflated and then burst, the periods of unexpected growth, and the moments when patience and insight yielded reward. These stories are passed down, whether through mentorship, education, or observation, creating a living archive of collective wisdom. Young investors learn from this history, gaining perspective and understanding that can guide their own choices. Consider the interplay of risk and reward, which lies at the heart of investing. Every decision carries potential for gain and loss. An investor may purchase shares in a promising technology company, hoping for growth that could multiply their initial investment many times over. Simultaneously, they accept the possibility that unforeseen events, market shifts, regulatory changes, or technological setbacks could reduce the value of their holdings. This delicate balance of possibility and uncertainty is what gives the market both its power and its beauty. It is a reflection of life itself, unpredictable, intertwined, and full of potential. The market's sensitivity to emotion and perception is also evident in bubbles and speculative manias. Whether the tulip mania, the dot-com surge, or housing bubbles in various periods, these phenomena demonstrate how collective belief can inflate value beyond intrinsic fundamentals. When enough people imagine that prices will rise, demand drives them higher, often untethered from the underlying reality. Yet when reality reasserts itself, prices adjust swiftly, sometimes violently. Observing these cycles is an exercise in humility. It reminds us that even the most sophisticated investors are subject to human tendencies and that markets, like life, are shaped by belief as much as by fact.
Investor psychology is not only about fear and greed, but also about aspiration. People invest because they seek security, growth, or the satisfaction of participating in something larger than themselves. Buying a share is an act of faith, faith in the company, in the economy, in one's own judgment, and in the possibility of the future. This faith, repeated thousands or millions of times across participants, forms the invisible architecture of markets. It is intangible, yet it underpins every price movement, every trade, every dividend paid. Markets are also arenas of creativity and innovation. Entrepreneurs and inventors look to them for resources to bring ideas to life. Investors, in turn, support these ideas, funding factories, laboratories, research, and expansion. In this way, markets become conduits of human ingenuity, linking vision with action. The capital that flows through exchanges fuels progress, enabling society to build new infrastructure, develop new technologies, and improve standards of living. Behind every share is a story of effort, creativity, and collaboration, often unseen by the investor, but real in its impact. Globalization has further expanded the influence and reach of markets. Decisions made in one country can affect prices and strategies halfway across the world. Economic shifts in Asia may influence investments in Europe. Political developments in South America may ripple through North America. This interconnectedness creates opportunities for growth, but also magnifies vulnerability. The market is no longer confined to local coffee houses or regional exchanges. It is a global conversation, a network of decisions, expectations, and stories spanning continents and cultures. Yet despite these layers of complexity, markets remain guided by fundamental principles: trust, risk, reward, and collective belief. Technology, speed, globalization, these amplify and accelerate, but they do not change the essence. At its core, investing is a human activity, rooted in imagination, observation, and judgment. Markets succeed when participants act with understanding and integrity, and they falter when fear, speculation, or deception dominate. Long-term investing illustrates the elegance of patience. Those who hold positions through cycles of boom and bust often see the rewards of persistence. They understand that markets move in waves, that setbacks are temporary, and that consistent observation and careful decision-making can yield growth over decades. This perspective transforms investing from a series of frantic trades into a thoughtful engagement with the flow of human activity, a dialogue between the present and the unfolding future. Markets also embody lessons in interconnected responsibility. Corporate governance, transparency, and ethical behavior influence investor confidence. Mismanagement or deception can lead to declines not just for individual companies, but for entire sectors. Conversely, responsible practices build trust, attract investment, and foster sustainability. Investors, therefore, are participants in a larger moral economy where decisions resonate far beyond their personal portfolios. The story of markets is also a story of learning. Early traders made mistakes, learned from them, and established systems to prevent repetition. Regulations, exchanges, disclosure requirements, and reporting standards evolved as society sought to balance freedom and protection. Investors, too, evolve, gaining knowledge through experience, observation, and education. This learning process is ongoing, reflecting the dynamic and adaptive nature of both human behavior and financial systems. Financial crises, though often painful, offer profound insights. They illuminate the consequences of overconfidence, excessive leverage, and untempered speculation. They teach the value of diversification, risk management, and thoughtful analysis. Each crisis becomes part of the collective memory, guiding future decisions and shaping the culture of investing. Markets, in this sense, are both mirrors and teachers, reflecting our behavior and instructing us through experience. The stock market also highlights the beauty of incremental progress. Small, consistent gains compound over time, transforming modest investments into meaningful wealth. This principle, simple yet profound, illustrates the power of patience and the long-term horizon of thoughtful investing. Just as a tree grows slowly from a seed to a towering presence, investments mature gradually, influenced by careful tending and favorable conditions. We also see in markets a narrative of collaboration. Investors, companies, regulators, and consumers all participate in a shared ecosystem. Success depends on coordination, trust, and mutual respect. When participants align their actions thoughtfully, the market can foster prosperity, innovation, and social advancement. When disalignment or negligence dominates, disruption occurs, often with widespread consequences. The role of emotion remains central. Even with advanced analysis, charts, and algorithms, fear and hope influence decisions. Markets respond not only to tangible data, but to perception, belief, and sentiment. This psychological dimension ensures that markets are never purely mechanical. They are expressions of human nature in all its complexity. Understanding this aspect is essential for anyone seeking to navigate financial systems with clarity and insight.
Consider the evolution from the days of bustling trading floors to the age of digital exchanges. Once, traders shouted and gestured in the chaos of packed rooms, conveying their bids and offers through hand signals and voice. The energy was tangible, almost theatrical, a human ballet of hope, intuition, and judgment. Today, much of this activity occurs silently through computer networks, high-speed algorithms, and digital screens. The medium has changed, but the essence persists. Investors assessing risk, weighing opportunities, and acting on their expectations of the future. Globalization has extended the reach of the stock market in ways unimaginable just a century ago. Today, a person in New York can buy shares in a company headquartered in Tokyo, while another in London can invest in a startup in Sao Paulo. The interconnectedness means that events in one corner of the world can ripple across continents. Economic policy changes, political instability, natural disasters, and technological breakthroughs all have the power to influence prices and sentiment globally. The market has become a reflection of the entire interconnected human endeavor, where decisions resonate far beyond local boundaries. Modern trading technology has not only increased speed, but also accessibility. Previously, investing was often limited to wealthy individuals or large institutions. But today, digital platforms allow nearly anyone to participate. Mobile applications, online brokers, and global exchanges have democratized access, creating opportunities for broader participation, while also introducing new dynamics in the way prices fluctuate. Human behavior continues to drive markets, now amplified by the immediacy and reach of technology. High-frequency trading, algorithmic strategies, and artificial intelligence have added complexity to the market's rhythm. These technologies can execute thousands of trades in milliseconds, react instantly to news, and identify patterns invisible to human eyes. Yet even in this environment, human intention underpins every system. Developers, strategists, and analysts design the algorithms, set parameters, and monitor outcomes. The market remains a collaboration between human imagination and technological capability, blending intuition with precision. Modern investors face choices that balance innovation and caution. Emerging technologies, renewable energy companies, biotechnology, and artificial intelligence firms offer opportunities for remarkable growth. Yet every innovation carries uncertainty, as success depends on markets, competition, regulation, and adoption. Investors must weigh potential returns against the inherent risks, a task that requires both careful analysis and a sense of human judgment that no algorithm can fully replicate. Diversification has become a cornerstone strategy. By spreading investments across industries, regions, and asset classes, investors can reduce risk while maintaining potential for growth. It is a quiet form of mindfulness, a recognition that no single decision or outcome dominates the entire system. Just as in nature, where diversity ensures resilience, a diverse investment portfolio creates stability and adaptability in the face of uncertainty. Global crises, whether financial, political, or environmental, have tested the resilience of modern markets. The 2008 financial crisis, triggered by failures in mortgage-backed securities and excessive leverage, sent shockwaves across the world. Investors experienced losses, institutions restructured, and regulations were strengthened. Such events reveal the delicate balance between trust and risk, innovation and oversight. They are reminders that the market, while powerful, is also fragile and dependent on collective responsibility. Despite the challenges, markets continue to create opportunity. Capital flows to ventures that promise growth, innovation, and societal benefit. Companies access resources to develop products, hire workers, and expand infrastructure. Investors, in turn, participate in these stories, gaining financial returns while contributing to the evolution of the economy. The market is, in this sense, both a mirror and a mechanism for human progress, translating vision into tangible outcomes.
Technology has also transformed communication and information flow, making markets more transparent. Financial news, earnings reports, economic indicators and analyses are instantly accessible worldwide. This immediacy allows investors to make informed decisions with unprecedented speed. Yet it also challenges them to filter noise from meaningful signals. Wisdom, discernment, and patience remain as vital as ever, guiding thoughtful participation in a system now operating at global scale. The psychology of modern investing mirrors timeless patterns. Hope and fear continue to influence behavior. Market optimism can drive prices upward, creating momentum and attracting additional participants. Conversely, fear can trigger sudden declines, even absent fundamental changes in a company's performance. Understanding these dynamics is essential for navigating both short-term volatility and long-term opportunity. Markets are human systems, reflecting sentiment as much as statistics, imagination as much as analysis. Sustainable investing has emerged as a guiding principle in recent decades. Investors increasingly consider environmental, social, and governance factors, seeking to support companies that operate responsibly while maintaining profitability. This approach aligns financial goals with broader societal values, demonstrating that markets can encourage ethical behavior, innovation, and long-term thinking. Investing becomes not only a financial endeavor, but a reflection of shared responsibility and forward-looking vision. Modern markets also reveal the power of networks. Investors interact with analysts, advisors, media, and peers, exchanging information and insights. Social platforms, discussion forums, and professional networks amplify the flow of knowledge, creating communities of learning and collaboration. Individual decisions are influenced by collective trends, creating a web of connection that spans industries, regions, and cultures. Each participant contributes to the rhythm, shaping outcomes through both direct and indirect influence. Globalization and technology have also increased the speed and complexity of financial instruments. Derivatives, options, and other structured products allow investors to manage risk, leverage positions, and access new opportunities. These tools provide flexibility, but also require understanding and discipline. In the hands of informed investors, they can enhance stability and growth. Misused, they can magnify risk and create volatility. The story of markets is thus one of both empowerment and caution, a delicate balance between opportunity and responsibility. Education, research, and analysis have become indispensable. Investors now access a wealth of historical data, real-time metrics, and predictive models. Financial literacy allows participants to interpret trends, evaluate risks, and make informed choices. Yet experience and intuition remain critical. Knowing how to apply knowledge, understanding context, and observing market sentiment complement technical skill, creating a holistic approach to investing that blends art and science. The evolution of markets also reflects broader societal change. Women, younger investors, and previously marginalized communities increasingly participate, shaping the culture of investing and broadening the diversity of perspectives. These shifts bring new ideas, priorities, and strategies, enriching the collective story and strengthening the resilience of markets. Inclusion becomes not only a social good, but an economic asset, reflecting the human dimension that underpins all financial systems. Markets are dynamic, adapting continuously to innovation, regulation, and human behavior. They are responsive to global trade, monetary policy, corporate performance, and unforeseen events. Yet despite this complexity, the underlying principles remain constant. Trust, shared risk, imagination, and the interplay of patience and action. Observing the market with awareness allows participants to navigate its movements with clarity and intention. Long-term growth, innovation, and societal progress are intertwined within the market. When capital flows to productive enterprises, economies expand, jobs are created, and technology develops. Investors, in turn, gain returns and participate in shaping the future. This cyclical interaction is the essence of modern markets, connecting individual decisions to collective outcomes, and demonstrating the enduring human story embedded in finance. Even as markets operate at global speed, the foundational lessons persist. Patience, observation, and disciplined decision-making continue to yield results. Risk is managed through diversification, knowledge, and reflection. Innovation is rewarded, while integrity and ethical behavior build trust. These enduring principles remind us that the market, though ever-changing, is rooted in timeless human patterns. Modern market narratives also emphasize the interplay between information and perception. In a world saturated with news, data, and analysis, investors must discern the signal from the noise. Understanding context, evaluating credibility, and maintaining perspective are essential skills. Markets respond not only to facts, but to belief, interpretation, and expectation. Each trade is a story, each decision a reflection of how humans interpret and respond to the unfolding world. The journey of markets is a journey of learning and adaptation. Crises teach resilience, innovation fuels growth, and human judgment shapes outcomes. Technology enhances speed and connectivity, but cannot replace insight or wisdom. Investors participate in a system that is simultaneously mechanical and profoundly human, structured yet responsive, historical yet forward-looking. The market embodies the rhythm of society itself, dynamic, interconnected, and reflective of human aspirations.
Artificial intelligence and machine learning have begun to transform the market in profound ways. Algorithms can analyze vast quantities of data, detect patterns invisible to the human eye, and execute trades with lightning speed. Yet, even in this high-tech environment, human oversight remains essential. Programmers design algorithms, set parameters, and interpret outcomes. The interplay between human judgment and automated systems exemplifies the evolving nature of modern markets. Efficiency enhanced by technology, guided by human values and decisions. Blockchain and digital assets have introduced a new frontier of investing. Cryptocurrencies, tokenized securities, and decentralized finance platforms offer alternative methods for capital allocation, often independent of traditional intermediaries. These technologies present opportunities for innovation, democratization of access, and transparency, while also introducing new risks and regulatory challenges. The story of the market is expanding to include these digital landscapes, blending centuries-old principles with the possibilities of the 21st century. Global interconnectivity means that events anywhere in the world can ripple through markets instantaneously. Geopolitical developments, trade agreements, natural disasters, and economic policy changes can all influence investor sentiment and asset prices.
This interconnectedness amplifies both opportunity and risk, reminding participants that markets are part of a broader living system of human activity. Decisions are no longer isolated. They reverberate across countries and continents, creating a truly global conversation. Investors today navigate a landscape where access to information is unparalleled. Real-time data, news, financial reports, and analysis are available at the touch of a button. Yet, the abundance of information requires discernment. Wisdom, patience, and critical thinking are more vital than ever. The market may be fast, complex, and global, but its foundational principles remain: observation, judgment, and understanding human behavior. Sustainability and social responsibility have emerged as key considerations in modern investing. Environmental, social, and governance (ESG) criteria guide investment decisions, reflecting broader societal priorities. Investors seek not only financial returns, but also alignment with values and long-term impact. Companies that demonstrate accountability, transparency, and ethical behavior tend to attract capital, reinforcing a positive feedback loop that supports responsible business practices. In this way, markets act as instruments of both economic and social change. The global market is also a laboratory for innovation. New industries, clean energy, biotechnology, artificial intelligence, and space exploration are funded through capital allocation, enabling human creativity and ingenuity to reach new heights. Each investment supports the development of ideas, products, and infrastructure that shape the future. Investors become participants in this ongoing evolution, their decisions influencing the trajectory of society and the potential of emerging technologies. Psychology remains central to modern markets. Hope, fear, and expectation continue to guide behavior. Even with sophisticated analysis and advanced algorithms, human emotion plays a critical role. Investors respond to perceived opportunities, rumors, and market sentiment. Understanding this psychology allows participants to navigate volatility with perspective and calm, balancing rational analysis with the recognition of instinct and intuition that has always influenced markets. The lessons of history remain invaluable. Bubbles, crashes, and periods of rapid growth illustrate enduring patterns of human behavior. By studying these episodes, investors can better understand the consequences of speculation, leverage, and herd mentality. Knowledge of past cycles fosters informed decision-making, helping participants navigate complexity while appreciating the rhythm of market ebbs and flows. Diversification continues to be a core principle. Spreading investments across asset classes, sectors, and regions mitigates risk and fosters stability. Just as nature relies on biodiversity for resilience, markets benefit from the diversity of ideas, participants, and opportunities. This principle underscores the importance of strategy, foresight, and careful planning, rather than reactive decision-making driven solely by immediate trends or emotion.
Technology has also redefined accessibility. Online platforms, mobile applications, and educational resources enable a broader range of participants to invest. Previously excluded individuals can now participate in markets, bringing new perspectives and strategies. This democratization strengthens the system by increasing participation, broadening the flow of capital, and fostering a culture of financial literacy and empowerment. Modern investors must also embrace adaptability. Markets evolve rapidly due to technological change, regulatory developments, and global events. Those who remain flexible, observant, and informed are better positioned to navigate shifts in sentiment, asset values, and opportunities. Adaptability is not merely a reaction to change, but an ongoing engagement with learning, reflection, and strategic foresight. Global crises, though challenging, highlight the resilience and adaptability of markets. Economic downturns, pandemics, political unrest, and natural disasters test systems, investors, and institutions alike. Yet markets recover, evolve, and often emerge stronger, guided by lessons learned. These episodes reinforce the importance of long-term perspective, patience, and a recognition that markets are complex systems shaped by countless human decisions over time. Innovation continues to expand the narrative of the stock market. Crowdfunding, micro-investing, and decentralized platforms allow individuals to support ventures that align with their values and interests. These developments illustrate how markets can be inclusive, participatory, and reflective of diverse priorities. Investors today are not merely observers, they are collaborators in the creation of economic and social futures. Ethical considerations have gained prominence. Markets reward transparency, integrity, and accountability. Companies that operate responsibly attract investment, while those that engage in malpractice face consequences. Investors, regulators, and the public collectively shape norms and expectations, reinforcing the idea that the market is not only a financial system, but also a moral and social ecosystem. Looking forward, artificial intelligence promises further transformation. AI can analyze market trends, forecast patterns, and assist investors in making data-driven decisions. Machine learning allows systems to adapt, optimize strategies, and reduce human error. Yet even as AI becomes more sophisticated, human judgment, values, and creativity remain indispensable. Markets are ultimately expressions of human intent, belief, and aspiration. The stock market's evolution is also a story of continuity. Centuries-old principles, trust, risk and reward, patience and observation, persist alongside modern tools and global reach. Understanding these constants allows investors to navigate change effectively, appreciating that while the medium may evolve, the essence of investing remains deeply human. In this interconnected, technologically advanced environment, the market becomes a story of collective imagination. Each trade is a sentence in an ongoing narrative of enterprise, innovation, and social interaction. Each investment represents a belief in a company, a technology, or a vision for the future. The market is both record and instrument of human aspiration, reflecting the hopes, fears, and ingenuity of millions across the globe. Investors today are participants in a vast, dynamic system where every decision has both immediate and long-term consequences. They navigate risk, opportunity, and uncertainty, guided by knowledge, intuition, and ethical considerations. They are part of a shared story, connecting past lessons with present opportunities and future possibilities. The future of markets includes further integration with technology, sustainability, and global collaboration. Digital currencies, AI-driven analysis, and innovative investment platforms will continue to transform participation. Environmental and social priorities will influence capital flows, shaping corporate behavior and societal outcomes. Despite these changes, the core principles, human judgment, trust, patience, and shared risk, endure. And so, as we conclude our journey through the stock market, we see it as a living, evolving system that is both complex and deeply human. It is a mirror of society, a reflection of behavior, and a mechanism for growth and innovation.
Each investor, each trade, and each company contributes to this ongoing narrative, a quiet story of aspiration, learning, and collective endeavor. Take a moment to reflect on what we have explored: the origins of markets, the psychology of investors, the evolution of technology, and the global interconnectedness that defines today's financial world. The market is a living archive of human ambition, imagination, and collaboration. By understanding it, participating thoughtfully, and respecting its rhythms, we can engage not only as investors, but as conscious participants in a shared human story.
Thank you for joining this quiet journey through the stock market. If you found this exploration insightful, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your thoughts in the comments. Tell us about your experiences or perspectives on investing and continue the conversation. Every voice contributes to our collective understanding, just as every investment contributes to the story of markets. Stay curious, stay reflective, and remember, each choice you make in the market is a part of a much larger, enduring story.